The last thing I remember clearly is the sound. Not the impact, not the scream. The sound. Long, hollow, tearing through the dark like something calling from very far away, and somehow right above me. If I had understood what that sound really meant, I would have kept driving until the gas ran out. But at the time, I still thought I was just tired. I had 60 miles left. That number was looping in my head like a promise. 60 miles, and I'd be home in my own bed. With the windows shut and the world locked outside, the Appalachian highway was empty, the kind of empty that feels intentional. Trees pressed close to the road, their branches arching overhead, swallowing the sky. No radio, no signal, just the hum of the tires and my own breathing. It was late, well past midnight, and July heat sat heavy in the car. The air conditioning had given up miles ago, and sweat clung to my neck and spine. I remember thinking how strange it was that the forest looked darker than usual, as if the headlights weren't reaching as far as they should. Then the deer stepped into the beams. It wasn't running. It wasn't startled. It was just there. I didn't even have time to brake properly. Instinct took over. I yanked the wheel to the right, felt the tires lose grip, felt my stomach lift as the car slid off the asphalt and dropped into the shallow ditch with a violent jolt. Glass rattled. Something metallic screamed. Then silence, thick and absolute. For a few seconds, I didn't move. I waited for pain, for blood, for smoke. None came. The engine was still running, coughing softly, like it hadn't realized what just happened. My hands were shaking so badly, I had to sit on them to make it stop. "I'm okay," I whispered, mostly to convince myself. The door creaked as I pushed it open. Warm air should have rushed in. Instead, I felt cold brush my face. That was when I noticed my breath. A thin cloud escaped my mouth, pale and unmistakable, drifting upward and vanishing in front of the headlights. I stared at it, confused. It took my brain a second to catch up. It was July. It had been unbearably hot all night. I stepped fully out of the car, heart starting to pound harder now. The road was empty. No other headlights, no insects, no sound of wind through leaves. And there, standing in the middle of the highway, was the deer. It hadn't moved. Its body was perfectly still, frozen in the exact spot where I'd seen it before the crash. The angle of its legs, the tilt of its head, unchanged, like a paused frame. I felt a nervous laugh bubble up. "Hey," I shouted, forcing my voice to sound firm. "Go on, get out of here." The sound died almost immediately, swallowed by the forest. The deer didn't flinch. Slowly, too slowly, it turned its head toward me. That was when I saw its eyes. They weren't reflecting the headlights the way animal eyes usually do. They were glowing. Not bright, not blinding, just a dull, sickly green, like light filtered through old glass. They fixed on me with a focus that felt deliberate, heavy, aware. My mouth went dry. My feet refused to move. The deer lifted its head slightly, as if listening to something I couldn't hear, and then it opened its mouth. The sound that came out of the deer wasn't loud at first. It started low, deep in its chest, like something winding itself tight before snapping. The vibration crawled over my skin instead of hitting my ears, as if the air itself had thickened around me. I stood frozen, staring straight into those green-lit eyes, unable to look away. "Hey, easy," I muttered, the words slipping out on instinct. My voice sounded wrong, thin, distant, like it didn't fully belong in the night anymore. The deer didn't blink. Its gaze never wavered, never softened, never showed fear. It felt like I was the thing being studied. Then it lifted its head higher and screamed. I'd heard deer calls before. Anyone who's driven rural roads has. But this wasn't that. This was stretched, distorted, dragged too long, a sound that shouldn't have been able to come from lungs. It echoed down the highway and vanished into the trees, leaving behind a pressure that made my teeth ache. For a moment, everything was still again. Then the forest answered. At first, it was just movement, a faint rustling between the trunks, branches shifting where there was no wind. I squinted past the edge of the headlights, my eyes straining to separate shadows from shapes. That's when I saw the first pair of eyes. Green, dim, unblinking. They hovered low between two trees, motionless. Then another pair appeared farther back, and another. Each one identical in color, in height, in that quiet, focused stare. My pulse hammered in my ears as the darkness beyond the road slowly filled with them. Something stepped forward. A second deer emerged from the trees, then a third. They moved calmly, deliberately, hooves touching the asphalt without a sound. More followed, slipping out of the forest one by one, until the road ahead and behind was lined with bodies. Dozens of them, maybe more. I tried to count and failed. My mind kept losing track, like the number refused to stay still. They all faced me. The cold deepened suddenly, brutally. It poured over my skin, down my spine, into my hands. My fingers began to sting, then throb, then fade into numbness. Each breath came out in thick white clouds now, my chest tightening as if the air had grown thinner. I took a step back toward the car. The gravel crunched loudly under my boot, and the sound seemed to ripple through the line of deer like a signal. Every head turned at once, perfectly synchronized. That's when I realized something else. None of them were breathing. No movement in their chests. No steam from their mouths. Just stillness, absolute and unnatural, broken only by the quiet idle of my engine behind me. The first deer lowered its head slightly, then slowly tilted it upward, eyes lifting toward the dark sky above the road. One by one, the others followed, necks stretching back at the same angle, like they were waiting for something to arrive. My ears began to ring. I raised my hands without thinking, palms pressed against the sides of my head, heart slamming so hard it hurt. Every instinct screamed at me to run, to hide, to do anything, but my legs wouldn't listen. All at once, every deer opened its mouth, and they screamed together. The sound hit all at once. It wasn't just loud, it was crushing. A single, unified scream tore out of them, slamming into me with such force that my vision shattered instantly. It felt like the air itself collapsed inward, like pressure folding reality in on itself. I clamped my hands over my ears, but it didn't matter. The sound wasn't coming from outside anymore. It was inside my head. I squeezed my eyes shut as hard as I could. Behind my eyelids, a blinding white flash exploded, sharp, violent, like a camera firing inches from my face. My stomach dropped away. For a brief, endless moment, I lost all sense of direction, of weight, of time. There was only that scream, stretched impossibly thin. Then, a click. Silence. I opened my eyes. I was sitting behind the wheel. The engine was running. The dashboard glowed softly. Morning light spilled through the windshield, pale and ordinary. The sky ahead was washed with the first colors of dawn. The car was angled slightly toward the ditch, one tire just off the asphalt, enough to explain a sudden swerve. Nothing more, nothing dramatic. No deer, no glowing eyes, no forest full of sound, just the road, the trees, the quiet. For several seconds, I couldn't move. My hands were locked around the steering wheel, knuckles white, my pulse still racing as if my body hadn't received the message yet. The cold was gone. The July heat had returned, heavy and real. My mind reached for explanations. I must have nodded off, just for a second. A microsleep. People warn you about it. Long drives, empty roads, the brain slipping into dreams without asking permission. It fit too well not to be true. It was the kind of answer that closed doors instead of opening them. I swallowed and eased the car back onto the road. The tires hummed. The forest slid past on both sides, harmless and silent in the growing daylight. Mile after mile passed without anything else happening. I kept my eyes fixed on the asphalt ahead. 60 miles became 58, then 55. My breathing slowly steadied. My grip on the wheel loosened. By the time the sun fully cleared the treetops, the memory had already begun to dull around the edges, like a dream that resists being held onto once you're awake. Still, as the road stretched on ahead of me, I never once looked into the forest again.